All right, coming back with a couple of bonus questions from our Locked On Heat insider community, all related to a potential Jimmy Butler trade. Pook writes in, if the Heat don't get a win now player in a Jimmy trade, will they be prioritizing multiple picks? David, I think that's exactly what it is, right? But I think they can get a win now player and multiple picks, but I suppose it's what you define. Like a win now player is maybe a veteran role player. I don't think a star is coming back in this trade.
No, yeah, I think that's fair, and we've debunked that possibility. Just that's not the market for Jimmy Butler at this stage of his career, and given his contract situation and the headache that comes with having a Jimmy Butler on the roster and the potential for a disastrous thing. I think enough teams like Milwaukee and or Memphis were kind of turned off by the whole, well, he's not going to sign there. And when his representative made it clear that Phoenix was the desired goal and the only team, this has been the quietest but most obvious. Well, there's only one team I'll play for. To go from I'll play for any team but Miami to I'll really only play for one team that's not Miami. That's a hell of a drop off there. And so when you put that out there and through kind of back channels and everything else like that, a superstar was probably never coming back under any circumstances. So and even if you had acquired Bradley Beal, he's not a superstar at this point in time. You were never going to get that kind of generational player or even a top 15, 20 player. Jimmy might not necessarily be a top 20 player anymore at this stage in his career, but you're not getting equal value back in exchange for Butler or what he can in theory provide.
Yeah, and even the pipe dream of, well, maybe Kevin Durant will ask out or De'Aaron Fox will force his way out of Sacramento. I suppose it was worth waiting a couple of weeks to see, but that clearly is not happening right now.
Not now, anyway.
Were those Phoenix Suns colors on his shoes?
Yeah.
I mean, they were technically Phoenix Suns colors on his shoes, but were they purposely Suns colors on his shoes?
We've seen this too often from Jimmy to assume that it's all kind of just like, oh, I don't know how I wound up with purple hair, when I'm linked to such team, or blue hair or yellow hair or red hair. Like we've seen it too often from him. Like he's not directly trolling, but he's kind of just really strongly indicating, well, this is exactly what I want to do. And he has to know how this is all shaping up. He's made it clear Phoenix is his destination and that it's going to get done sooner rather than later. And we're seeing things work out that way. So I don't think it's done accidentally. I'll say that much.
It's literally his shoe, and it's a colorway of his shoe. There is 0% chance that happens accidentally. You pick and choose these colors. Now, maybe there's some sort of person in charge of your colorways that you've given them that responsibility or whatever, but that is very pointed. And when you're talking about, okay, I want to make sure I have the colorway that matches my team's jersey, that didn't match the Miami Heat's jersey tonight. That matches a jersey out in Phoenix. And when he's eventually traded to the Phoenix Suns, because it looks like that's an inevitability here.
Yeah.
He will be wearing those exact shoes, or at least those exact colorways. So whatever that means, take that for what it's worth. Flavio writes in, I hope Jimmy will not be here after February. But if we get to the playoffs and Shenanigan Jimmy is still here, will he transform into playoff Jimmy? No, I don't think he will. And I think he'll just be pouting the entire time. But
I'll go a little further. They won't make the playoffs if Jimmy's still here past the deadline.
Great point.
They just won't. He's going to be the dark cloud hanging over for everything. No player on this roster, aside from maybe Tyler, is going to try to be as active and engaged. And I think everybody else is going to just be like, oh, I don't even know what the hell we're doing here. And they just won't make the playoffs. So I think you have to try to clear the air as quickly as possible. Think about it from that perspective. Like if you look at it the next couple of weeks, even say the next month in terms of a schedule, you can trade him within the next week or so. And I think we both agree that that's probably realistic at this point in time. And then that gives you a little bit of time before the All-Star break to kind of recoup, get your mind right, focus on the second half of the season, although technically not really the second half. But you can, again, you can start doing your kind of workouts back in Miami during the All-Star break. You take the much-needed kind of reprieve mentally, emotionally. You start to focus. And then you don't have to worry about the rest of February, March, and the beginnings of April, the rest of the regular season, wondering about what the hell is Jimmy going to do? What's chaos is he going to bring to the table? Am I starting? Am I playing? Am I going to be a factor in this? Am I going to be included in a potential trade? Like, we talk about this all the time at the trade deadline. Like around the league, players will feel a certain heightened level of anxiety that ties to the deadline because they don't know what's going to happen. And once that deadline passes, we've seen this particularly with Duncan Robinson for years now. The day after the trade deadline, it's like he's relieved. He lets it fly. It's back to being old Duncan because it seems like every year the team talks about trading him, or rumors talk about trading him, or fans talk about trading him. That eats at you. There's only so much you can carry from just as a human being trying to deal with that kind of stress. And so I'm just hoping that they can move on from this quickly as quickly as possible so that they can go ahead and hit that reset button. And I would personally think that they will be a refreshed version of what this current roster is. I don't know that it's necessarily going to translate to a lot of wins. It might be kind of that same energy that we saw from them in the West Coast road trip where it's just us now. We got to figure it out. They wound up going 3-3 in that road trip, unfortunately, with that loss to the Sacramento Kings. But, at the very least, there's a sense of clarity, a sense of understanding of who we are, and we don't have to worry about the Jimmy Butler situation anymore.
Yep.
And yeah, you can kind of grieve it, you can mourn it, and you can feel bad about it. And there will be players in that locker room that kind of do have to go through the grieving process. And after that, you know what? It's all clear sailing from here because you can at least know that that's no longer going to be a distraction.
Clarity is a magical thing in the NBA, not just in terms of your own situation or your own contract situation or the team situation, also a pecking order, on the team. And right now that's been screwed up. They're like, you have to defer to Jimmy Butler because he's still Jimmy Butler. He's still one of the star of the team or one of the stars of the team, but he's not playing like that. Right. And so when he asks for the ball, you have to give it to him. And then when he wants to just go park himself in the corner, you're like, all right, I guess not this possession. And then so you're just sort of sputtering around for 3 or 4 or 5 seconds on the shot clock, just being like, every possession, which Jimmy am I getting? And so that's sort of the way he's approached these games lately. And this team, I agree with you. I think they're going to actually go on a little bit of a run. I don't know if it's a winning streak, but it'll be like 7 out of 10 games or something like that.
Yeah.
They'll go on a run once this Jimmy Butler thing is resolved because that clarity is a magical thing.
That's such NBA. A great point. Absolutely. And I talked about this in that first season that Jimmy was here. Like, you didn't always get generational Jimmy. You certainly didn't always get playoff Jimmy during the regular season, but at least you had a hierarchy for the first time in years. Think about the years preceding that between 2016 when Dwayne left and 2019 when they acquired Jimmy.
Come on. It was you of all people besmirching Dion Waiters here? Don't do that.
Well,
don't do that. Can I ask you about this trade?
Let's do it.
So Barry Jackson, and he says in all caps, purely hypothetical, not a report, but proposes this idea. Connaughton to the Pistons. The Bucks get it under the second apron. That was the deal that we've talked about. It kind of has to happen still. Butler goes to Phoenix. Khris Middleton, Bobby Portis, and 2 of Phoenix's newly acquired first-rounders to Miami. Beal and the Suns' other first-round pick goes to the Bucks. Purely hypothetical, as Barry points out here. This is also sort of where I ended up. Now, perhaps there's a way to get Toronto involved, and Toronto takes maybe Middleton, and Bruce Brown comes over to Miami, and you get his expiring contract. Middleton and Portis are both under contract through next season also, which isn't the worst thing. I think Miami would be okay with that because they're kind of have circled the offseason of 2026 more than the offseason of 2025. But
how would Miami get Brown then? How
Middleton goes to Toronto, Brown comes to Miami, and I don't know what else would have to happen. But those contracts are close enough where
better or worse.
It would be better in the sense that Brown's contract expires after this year, so you come off that money a little bit earlier.
Okay, fair.
If that's something that Miami wanted, but I also and also Brown is healthier, even though he's been out for most of this season. But I think he projects to be healthier versus Khris Middleton, who has ankles made of glass right now. But so maybe that's something they want, perhaps. But in general, 2 first-round picks. I'm kind of excited about that.
Given Miami's success with the draft lately and their ability to scout players, I'd say so. I mean, you have to have faith in this front office, even
more importantly, David. Though I would say, Middleton's expiring. Yeah. I'd almost prefer those contracts that go through next year, because if that contract comes out, if a Bruce Brown comes off, you can't really use that in a bigger trade. Now you could sign and trade it and stuff like that, but that gets very complicated. Whereas Middleton's expiring at $40 million or whatever it is next year ish. Plus Bobby Portis is of a $12 million expiring ish. those are very stackable contracts. And now I've got 2 first-round picks that I can use. And if one of those picks, not to get too in the weeds here, is that 2027 pick that Phoenix just acquired, that would actually unlock 2028 and 2029 for Miami then to trade. Well, right now they can't really do that. So that there's a lot of stuff here that could be very helpful to Miami building a trade package for their next, I don't even know if it's superstar, all-star, whatever, but next sort of big trade acquisition. That's the kind of stuff that gets that done.
Yeah. It certainly leads to a lot of interesting possibilities, and it's kind of hard to project, that's how Miami would be able to use those things if they were able to acquire them. Again, without any kind of clear understanding if there is that player on the horizon. And, you could target De'Aaron Fox, you could target X player. I don't know who that would be, honestly. I just, there has to be so much that kind of lines up, but at least it gives you more tools in your tool cabinet, or more, food items in your pantry or your cupboard. As the cupboard had once been bare, as Pat Riley said, and now you can kind of restock it to a certain degree with more picks, more stackable contracts. That allows you to make a move of some kind when invariably the next star level player becomes available, because we see this every year. And you're not able to pull the trigger on, say, a Kevin Durant or a Damian Lillard or a Donovan Mitchell because you don't have those things in the cupboard. Now this gives you the opportunity. This puts you at the table so that you can make that next kind of move. And it might not necessarily be for that kind of star player, but it could be more for just the very good role player or somebody along those lines that could help boost this roster to another level there. So I think that's important to keep in mind as well.
When the Heat are making these kinds of trades, they want to make sure that they've got one of 2 things. You're either trading for a superstar, or you're trading for the stuff that gets you the next superstar.
Right.
And also, and I should have said 3 things. Stay competitive. This team generally wants to remain competitive.
Absolutely.
This trade, even if as uninspiring as it may seem on its face, kind of accomplishes 2 of those 3 things. It doesn't get you the superstar right now, but it gets you the stuff that could potentially get you a superstar. You mentioned some names there, not even really important at this stage. It's just, at least we have no idea who the next superstar is going to be, but at least now we have the stuff to go get that guy.
Get a seat at the table.
Wherever
now,
that table may be, with whoever it might be across. That's it, right? It's
right now you're looking in through the window and being like, "Hey, there's Luka at that table. Can I get in?" No,
sorry, you don't have the password.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, it does keep you competitive. Middleton, not what he used to be, still useful enough. Bobby Portis, not what he used to be, useful enough.
The Eric Spoelstra press conference, the heart of a champion, 2 proven veteran players that know how to win on the biggest stage, etc. Like, we know.
He'll say something like, they've obviously never been a part of our program, but they represent a lot of what our program is all about.
Nice. Almost exact wording. I could see that really. I could see that very clearly. These are guys that we've had on our radar for a while.
Those guys who we respected from afar, right?
Yes.
We've been in battle. We've been in the trenches with them, although on opposite sides.
Yes.
Something about no atheists in the foxhole.
It's gonna be a lot of
fun. Whatever other spoisms he wants to break out here. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app.